But I think the main things is at the end of the day, volleyball is volleyball. It's in the same 9x9 court, and the rules are the same. So we. Is that on the back of your shirt?
Yeah, it's on the back of the shirt.
You did. A little free shout out for you. And it doesn't matter who's on the other side of the net. You need to still execute to the best of your ability if you want to.
Let's do a bit of a catch up first before we jump into things.
Yeah. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back. It is the 81 square meters of the best volleyball coverage on the internet. This is the 9x9 episode 64. Today's Tuesday, April 18th, 2023. My name is Rob St. Clair, live from Chicago. I am back. I'm back on the show after a week off, getting married,
that's it. Show us the bling. That's what I wanted to see. Show us the bling. Let's go.
Got some hardware. So I'm back. We had a fantastic wedding and honeymoon in this Caribbean island that the Netherlands owns called Curacao. It was fantastic. I have expected to see Namir there hanging out, but he's busy playing volley. Anyway, it was great. It was a great week. Everett did a fantastic show by himself without me last week, which was cool to catch up on, listen to. There was certainly a lot to talk about, but I am back. We are back to our regularly scheduled programming on the 9x9, Mr. DeLorme.
Yes, and I'm thankful for it. As you can see, we've got the normal set going on here. There's two of us. Yeah, just doing those solo shows it's hard. It's hard. It's hard. You don't have anyone to go back and forth with, there's no buffer on things. Like, I thought I was going to be able to do that show in like 25 minutes and ended up being almost an hour. So yeah, but you know what? Glad you're back. Congratulations on the wedding. You look nice and tanned. I've got short hair. There's been a lot of changes.
He's got short hair. I mean, compared to the intro we just saw with you interviewing Brett Walsh, it's everything's different,
Yeah, a little bit of different, but still, it's all the same. And we're here to talk about some of the best volleyball in the world. Before we get to some of the matches, we have a difficult and sad situation in the volleyball world that came up last Wednesday. Novara athlete Julia Ituma fell out of her hotel room in Istanbul after Novara's loss to Fenerbahce in the Champions League. Julia was one of the bright young stars coming up in the Italian system, had played for their U18 teams and U21 teams in the past as well. And, I remember Tommy Blizzard talking about her earlier in the season when we did our preview. So our hearts and our thoughts and our prayers go out to Julia's family, to the rest of the Novara team, and just everyone in the Italian volleyball world for this terrible loss, because we know they're feeling it right now.
Yeah, this is brutal. This was really hard to read on whatever. I guess it was Thursday morning when I woke up on my honeymoon. I was still just following along with volleyball news, but this was a tough one to read. It's already been a hard enough year in the volleyball world with the Turkish earthquake, and there's been a lot going on, I feel like, but this is really, really sad for an 18-year-old with so much promise to have this happen out of nowhere after a game and everything. It was just a remarkable, shocking headline to read. So yeah, I agree with you. Well said. Prayers to her family, Novara's team, and just kind of the rest of the Italian volleyball community. I know that Novara's taken a couple days off. It's been almost a week now since it happened, and they've really taken all the time that they've been able to come to terms with what's happened, and they're gonna get back to playing some volleyball here in the next couple of days. But their matches, or their first couple Lega Volley Femminile playoff matches, were postponed for very good reason.
Yeah, absolutely. As we said, our hearts and thoughts and prayers go out to Julia's family and the rest of the Italian volleyball community. But despite that sad news, we do have to move on and talk about some actual volleyball. So we're going to talk about the other leg now of the CEV Champions League semifinals. And if you guys watched the solo show that I did last week, I had no hope for VakifBank. I truly didn't. The way that Fenerbahce had pounded them in the first semifinal, the way that Fenerbahce has been drilling them all year long in the SuperLega and the cups and everything, the way VakifBank have been playing, I had no hope whatsoever. None whatsoever. You have to go into Fenerbahce, win in 3 or 4, and then win a golden set. And not only did they do it, but they did it in emphatic style. This is the best we've seen VakifBank all year long. They did a complete 180 in one game alone, and all of a sudden they've just like a blow up bouncy castle. My hope is back for VakifBank volleyball.
Wow, a blow up bouncy castle, not the reference I thought we were going to get on tonight's show, but I love it. Yeah, I was with you when I didn't watch this game last week. I had to catch up on it after the fact, but I thought that there was no way. And like you said, having to go on the road, win 4 sets before Fenerbahce won 2, like that's hard enough. But more so because of the way that Fenerbahce has been playing and the way that Fenerbahce completely destroyed both Conegliano and VakifBank in those 3 matches in a row. Like the more that they were starting to play like that, and we talked about the service pressure and the high ball like physicality. We talked about all that the last couple shows, but the more they were doing that, like the more data there was, as the sample size grew, I became more and more convinced that this Fenerbahce team was going to go all the way in Champions League, and that VakifBank, there was nothing they could do to come back. And it was shocking to see the turnaround that the VakifBank was able to pull off. It was extremely, extremely impressive. Gabi Guimarães was tremendous. Paula Egonu was just as good as she needed to be. 57% kills, only 3 unforced errors is incredible.
To me, it really all came down to the 2 Americans. Jacobogu was unreal. 6 blocks. Kara Bayama, she was the MVP, as you can see there on your screen. She was ridiculous as well. Her passing was just out of this world. Like 53% positive, 26% excellent. It was unreal. But to me, the big stat there's 2 big stats for me. First of all, the blocking. 16 for VakifBank, 1 for Fenerbahce.
How do you only block 1 ball in 4 sets? That's crazy.
How do you block 16 balls in 4 sets? And one of those is only to 15. But when you look at the set distribution, 32 sets to Gabi, only 28 to Egonu. So all of a sudden, they're just not just chucking the ball to Egonu. They're actually running an offense, and she's being way more efficient. That, to me, it made all the difference.
Well said. Somehow they were able to completely flip some kind of a switch to fight off Fenerbahce's service pressure. And like Fenerbahce didn't have their best night serving wise, and we've talked about the volatility of that, how you can't guarantee that you're going to just serve the lights out every night. That's a skill it's impossible to rely on like that. But VakifBank did a great job putting themselves in the right places to just not get aced. I was impressed by that. I thought the same thing about Zaxa in a couple of their Champions League series. They did a great job of just putting balls to the center of the court, trying to get balls at or kind of near the 3-meter line and run an offense from there. And that's what it looked like to me for Vakif, and that's exactly what they needed, because they only set the middle 8 times total in 4 sets. That's all they needed. They didn't need any more than that. Because like you said, the distribution and the efficiency performances from all 3 wings, Bayama especially, totally turning her game around, both passing and attacking from the previous leg. That was really, really impressive. A great adjustment from Gudetti and company. Maybe they caught Fenerbahce on a lucky day where their serving level just came back down to earth a little bit, but very, very, very impressive comeback. You can't say enough about it.
As much as I think Gudetti had a part in this, to me, this smells like a players only meeting. I
agree.
This smells like a Gabi being like, no, you're going to give me the damn ball. I've been here. This has been my team, because the way that they were distributing the ball toward the amount of volume they were giving, they weren't just lazily throwing balls up to the right side for Egonu. It looks like they had a discussion. You know, one of those discussions that sometimes teams need to have, and it's a kind of a make or break point in the season. And this may have just made VakifBank's season, not only for the Champions League looking to defend their title, because they now are in a position to do so. Last week, I didn't think they were, but also moving forward into the SuperLega playoffs. So this was absolutely massive. And if they can continue playing like this, I don't know if anyone can touch them, right? If they play like this, I don't know if anyone can touch them.
It's going to be fascinating, because they're only going to see Turkish opponents the rest of the year, right? We've got plenty of time before the Champions League final, and they're going to get a crosstown rival, and it's Eczacıbaşı in that one. And I mean, we can look forward ahead to that matchup for the next month and change. But the way Vakif's playing right now, especially the way their 3 wings combined are playing right now, the way they played against Fenerbahce, I like him for now. I think it's a very interesting matchup position for position. Cansu Özbay had a great match in this one against Fenerbahce. She's going to have to continue to be good to potentially outset Maya Onjanovic. But other than that, like Egonu and Boskovic, that's a toss-up. And other than like the other two outside hitters, I'll take Gabi and whoever's next to her over anybody that Eczacıbaşı can throw out there. And I'm really curious to see how that goes. If Vakif can keep this set distribution, they can keep this execution level. And if anything comes up in the domestic league, is that they've got, I think, 2 regular season games left. If anything comes up there that makes me think any differently, but that matchup is just going to be fascinating, and I would have to lean towards VakifBank right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Just because we've been waiting for the Giant to wake up, and I think they're awake now. We'll have to see what happens in their next match, once their next big match in the SuperLega. And as I look through here, let's see if we can find their next match. I think it's the end of the season right now, so they're not, or end of the regular season. So yeah, they don't have any big matches coming up. But it's going to be interesting to see once they finally start getting pushed again, because we know how lopsided the SuperLega is, how it looks. But man, did they ever look good? Like they've looked as good as any team this year, last week.
Yeah, it's only one match, but backs against the wall to pull that off, winning 4 sets before Fenerbahce won 2 after being completely embarrassed the week before, and doing it on the road. That was extremely, extremely impressive. So don't trust me, we're not overreacting too hard. We understand that it was one match, but I agree with you. I think there was probably some kind of players only meeting that happened, and you've got to think that if a certain other Champions League contender on the other side, on the men's side, that we'll talk about later, if they had pulled off a certain similar players only meeting, then maybe their storylines would have been a little different. Huge credit to VakifBank. That really just shows the grit and the heart of those players.
Yeah, absolutely. It was awesome to see. Sad for Fenerbahce because it looked like they seemed like they were just on a train. It seems like they were on the train to Turin for the finals, and that no one was going to be able to knock them off. And one little bump in the road, and that was VakifBank in one match.
Yep. I'll see if Fenerbahce can do some damage domestically, but yeah, their Champions League run ends. So the finals are set. We've got VakifBank versus Eczacıbaşı. Again, that's going down May 20th, so just about a month from now in Turin. Men's side as well, all Polish final, Zaksa versus Jastrzębski. So that's it for all CEV. We can take a break from the midweek CEV action until the Super Finals. We'll have plenty of time to preview those 2 games. But the one other thing we got to talk about, Everett, it is official. I believe I crowned them at least 2 weeks ago, but Scandicci has won the CEV Cup on the women's side. Congratulations to them. Obviously, they were going to beat a Romanian team in the final.
They won it when they beat THY in the semis. One thing real quick, though, is when was the last time we saw no Italian teams in the Champions League finals, right? I know it's been it's been a while, but they obviously put the finals in there because they were like, well, we're probably gonna have one team on the men's side and one team on the women's side, and now there's none. It's really too bad that it's not going to be in either Poland or Turkey or something like that, because I'm wondering how many of their own fans are going to be making that trip to Turin.
I think the Polish fans will, especially both. Zaksa's in like southwestern Poland. That's not that far. Like that, the town of Kędzierzyn. I could see it. Anyway, it is crazy. And I was going to talk about now that all the CEV competitions are over except Champions League final, which are set. We had, let's see, Chieri and Scandicci both win like European hardware on the women's side. So Chieri won Challenge Cup, Scandicci won CEV Cup, and then like you talked about last week, Modena came back in a golden set to win the CEV Cup on the men's side. But having no Italian teams in the Champions League final on either side, even though Italian teams won both the Club World Championships, it is starting to show some cracks potentially in both Italian leagues, men's and women's, is potentially the best in the world. I think it's going to be a good argument to have as we get into the off season, as they will not hold any Champions League hardware in that country this year.
Yeah, it's very interesting. At the end of the day, I think it's just great for volleyball, right?
I
absolutely, I think it's a great spot for volleyball that the two, respectively, I think you can say that the two most up and coming into like the upper echelon of the elites in the past few years are there. So yeah, it's just absolutely awesome. But
yeah, club volleyball is in a great spot. Like nothing to do with Scandicci winning Challenge Cup or CEV Cup. Like, yeah, good for them. We knew that was going to happen, but maybe a bit of a passing of the torch as far as Champions League hardware goes. And I'm curious to see how that shapes some storylines in this offseason of transfers and all that stuff in club. But it's a really cool time for the game.
Absolutely. And we'll preview all of those. Those finals are going down. What is that? The 20th of May.
Yep.
So we'll be able to preview those in about a month's time.
Yeah, that's about right. So it's annoying they make us wait so long, but we'll do plenty of coverage leading up to the super finals. Speaking of Scandicci winning in Italy, talking about Italian volleyball, Everett, let's talk about the SuperLega because like you covered last week, you covered the endings of the quarterfinal series, including Perugia's just stunning choke loss to Milano. But we jumped right back into it. We're underway with the semifinal series. Trentino leads Piacenza 2-0. Trentino's got 1 foot in the final. And Milano and Lube tied 1-1. Both pretty good series so far. Where do you want to start?
Let's start with, let's start with the spicier one. Let's start with Lube versus Milano.
I like that.
Because, I mean, man, game one, I mean, Balasso was the MVP there, but to me, kind of
Ivan Zaitsev, man.
Oh, Zaitsev. Yeah, you're right. Zaitsev was absolutely unreal. It just looked to like Milano had maybe a bit of a hangover, right? And they didn't look crisp. They didn't look good. They just weren't nearly as good as they were against Perugia. And I think that's to be expected. A bit of a letdown after beating the best team in the world. After that big emotional play. But I watched their game on Sunday against Lube, and man, were they ever good? Do we want to break it down? Do you want to break down this first game first? Is that's how we want to do it?
Let's talk about the first game at least a little bit, because I think the second game was certainly closer and more fun to watch. I mean, first game, Lube hit 65% as a team. That's ridiculous. You're probably not going to beat a team at that point. Marlon Yant, 10 for 16 and passed the ball great. That was impressive. Ivan Zaitsev, I mean, 9 for 11. Attacking, which is insane, an ace and 91% positive reception. He's an opposite. I mean, obviously he's played outside hitter in his career, but he's lined up at opposite. He's stepping into the passing pattern to let Alex Nikolov just go bang balls, as we've talked about the last couple of weeks. And for a guy like that, who a couple of years ago for Perugia, remember when him and Atanasievich were both on the team, he was kind of annoyed with the idea of playing outside hitter. He did not want to play on the left. And the same went for the last year or two with Lube. For him to change his mind about that, to embrace the role that his team needs him to play and execute at 91% positive, 73% perfect passing is incredible. And is just a huge credit to Zaitsev's experience and him understanding of where he's at in his career. I was just really, really impressed.
I'm wondering if it's just that he doesn't like hitting on the left side, because he's still hitting on the right, right?
Right.
And he's hitting on the right, playing six back, and also passing. But for me, the big one is, why are you targeting Fabio Balasso 20 times?
Yeah, that's dumb.
Why is he touching the ball the most times on serve receive?
And Marlon Yant only 8? Come on.
And Marlon Yant only 8, exactly. And I mean, Nikolov got targeted 6 times and he only passed 17%. So it kind of shows you on that. But it just looked like Lube was the more veteran team in this one. Offensively, Milano was bad, right? Ishikawa, who, I mean, I think you guys heard about how I spoke about him in the last series, and
I'm about to do the same with the next game. But yeah, he wasn't good. He wasn't good this first game.
He wasn't good. Patry was the only one, but they just seemed they were slower. They didn't like it, for me. For Milano to win, and I think they have a possibility, a chance of winning. After the first game, I was like, man, this might just be a 3-donger, like all the way through. Like it might just be 3-dong, 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 3-dong for the series. But for this, like I really think that Milano has a shot and has a chance to take this one, because let's just jump into this into game number 2 on Sunday, because this one was absolutely phenomenal to watch. It was a back and forth match. Milano got out to an early lead in the first set, started dominated. Then Lube answered, and it was just back and forth all the way. Just absolutely fantastic. What was it? 22 points for Yuki Ishikawa. They hit 51% as a team. Their efficiency, let me see here, 40 or 47%. I think it was 41%
Pretty good.
efficiency. Yeah, which is pretty damn good, especially when you look at the Lube side of things, where their efficiency was only kind of 33%. Yeah, Milano looked really, really good. And I mean, I think it's like them at home is dangerous. I think that Milano Stadium is getting harder and harder to play in.
Man, they are so hot in that building. They beat Perugia twice there. They just beat Lube there. They're gonna get another game at home for sure in game 4, regardless of what happens in game 3. And Milano's club president, whoever it is, I'm sure is really enjoying all the income of those home games. But yeah, it's cool. That's a great venue. We've seen it. We've seen Monza play there in Champions League before because it's so close there. We've seen some great matches there. I mean, Lube has shown weaknesses to Milano the last couple of years even. I mean, they lost to him in the Cup quarterfinal both this year and last year. So I kind of had a feeling this was going to be a series. And I think I agree with you. The first game was a little bit of a hangover. It's hard to blame Milano after the turnaround from beating the best team in the world and just laying an egg in that first game. But this is a little more like what I was expecting to see. Yuki Ishikawa was awesome. He has really raised his stock and just in my opinion, and in just in the list of world outside hitters to hopefully a lot of people this year, he has had a phenomenal season.
He really has.
And watching Milano's games from like with our Volleymetrics access, getting to watch it from the baseline, really seeing the way that he reads seams in reception, the way that he defends, the way that he like runs down block touches, the way that he sees angles and attack. He's just really an all-around just fantastic volleyball player, regardless of his size or whatever you want to say about the Japanese national team. But Yuki Ishikawa is the heart and soul of this Milano team, and he
100%
is carrying them offensively too. Like we've said, Poro is bad at setting behind, so he's going to give Ishikawa a ton of balls in and out of system, and Ishikawa is just such a good all-around smart volleyball player that they're going to have success doing some of that stuff.
There was one play at the beginning of the third set where it was early on that just left my mouth dropped. It was kind of a broken play. They set the ball outside again. He chiseled it off the blocks, and Ishikawa, one-hand stab, dug it along the net, turns around, and the way he turned to reminded me of Engapeth, and doesn't even get out that far, 2 steps, and pounds a ball to the sideline. And Balasso is there kind of, signaling it was out. And they ended up having to challenge it, and it was in. But that to me is just the ease at which he made that play and how quickly he was able to, because he went from having his back turned completely to a second later getting set and jumping to hit. That's such a difficult play to make, and it just kind of that play encapsulates how well he's playing right now and how well he's feeling it. He has these up and down moments, like the sets that Lube wins, he's not as crisp. But especially down the stretch, and especially in that 5th set, he was so clutch. And you know what? People have heard me complain about Ishikawa on the show before, but man, has he ever gained my respect immensely more and more throughout these playoffs.
Yeah, he's been awesome. He's been really fun to watch, and I actually do kind of like the Irvin Engapeth comparison. Both like more undersized outside hitters who are just ridiculous in ball control and just the natural way they move and think and improvise. And I think there definitely is some similarity there. Also, I got to credit both Milano middles, Loser and Piano, both incredibly clutch in the blocking game in the 5th set. Those guys are making some awesome reads, and I'm thrilled to see Agustin Loser play in the Italian league this year. He's one of my favorite middles in the world to watch, and just ending people's careers with some of the block moves that he makes. I just love that guy. Cool middle matchup, honestly. Like 4 between these two teams, 4 completely different guys. I mean, like Chinyeze and Anzani against Piano and Loser is really, really fun.
I think Piano and Loser too might be one of the most underrated middle pairings in volleyball right now. And I really like the way that Poro is able to find them. Like we see they do a lot of drift moves. The way they move off their setter is really, really good. They have clean looks all the time. And I really think it helps spread out the offense for Milano. And I know that Poro isn't great at setting back, and I do agree. he's doing a better job of it, like especially in game 2 on Sunday. He was doing a much better job of it. He doesn't because he drops his hands a little bit. He's not able to push it outside as much. Like he doesn't have a super good flick. But when he does, and for some reason, like Lube hasn't really adjusted all that much, and Patry is just eating them up down the line. Like the majority of his kills are just down the line, just the outside of the block, and he's going clean backdoor, clean down the line. And to me, like, I think that would be just an easy adjustment. I understand why they're blocking at that, because they expect that Poro set to be inside, but he's doing a much better job at getting it outside to Patry.
Or at least high enough that Patrick can use his shoulder inside out. It's a shot he's really good at. I like this series. This is a very fun series. We're going to get at least 2 more games. Both game 3s in both these semifinal series are tomorrow. So this series is really fun. A series that hasn't been nearly as fun is Trentino versus Piacenza. So Trentino 3-donged them at home on whatever it was, I think last Wednesday or Thursday. And then Trentino beat him on the road 3-1 on Sunday. Here's the only numbers in this series that matter, Everett. And I want to make sure you're seated for this. Don't get sick when you hear these numbers. Here are Piacenza's serving numbers through 2 matches, 7 sets.
I knew what you were going to say.
Yeah. Aces, 3 aces in 7 sets, 45 service errors. 45 in 7 sets is well over 6 errors per set, and only 3 aces through 7 sets. That is vomit-inducing serving. Terrible.
Yeah, that is absolutely disgusting. And I mean, game 1, it wasn't as bad as a divide, 3 aces versus 12 errors for Trentino. But game number 2, I mean, 7 aces.
1 to 18 for Piacenza is so bad.
No, but versus 7 to 15 for Trentino. And to me, when I look at this, the matchup of Piacenza versus Trentino is a bad one for Piacenza, because Piacenza is a steady team. They're very, very good with ball control, like with Flavia and Neto, and of course, why am I blanking on his name right now? Kaczynski on the right side, Lorenzano as a libero. Like, this is a very, very skilled team, and perhaps the most skilled team of all of them. Whereas, let's be honest, Piacenza is a high-powered, physical, offensively minded team. And Trentino was just the worst draw for them against maybe even Milano, but still, I think there's a lot more cracks in Milano, absolutely. But I don't think I expect Trentino to win this one at home tomorrow. Sure. And if they are able to do that, they're looking pretty for the finals, looking real good for the finals, because they're sitting there, they get to rest, and they just get to watch film on Lube and Milano. And I mean, could you have imagined? There's a possibility here that we are going to have a Trentino versus Milano.
Scudetto
finals.
That is ridiculous.
Could you have imagined that at the beginning of the season?
And Trentino matches up so well against either of those 2 teams, against Lube or Milano. Like, Trentino is so clean. Now, here's the thing about this particular matchup, like with them and Piacenza, and why it is a bad matchup for Piacenza. Trentino, as skilled as they are, and is like all around just great volleyball players across the board, Trentino is not a good passing team. Trentino's reception numbers are not very good.
No.
Like, Gabriele Lorenzano is a young stud libero who's already a world-class defender, but is far from a very good serve receiver. And Lavia and Micheletto can really struggle in stretches passing the ball as well. So if Piacenza just gives them 45 points for free in 2 matches, they don't even, that's like Trentino's really only weakness, is if you serve the ball like 80% inbounds, you can actually take them off the net a little bit. And Piacenza giving so many points away for free, knowing nothing but going for it all or nothing from the service line, is a terrible matchup for them. And whatever they do, they have no choice but to switch something up with their service strategy. You cannot miss 27 serves in a game and expect to win. But
no.
Piacenza was down 2-0 against Modena. They were down 2-0 in game 5. The volatile nature of serving is such that if they somehow turn it around, if they catch fire, this series is not over. So I actually do think that Piacenza will win tomorrow. I think this series is going. I think this series is going at least 4. I think some weird stuff can sort of go on there. Remember last year in the semifinals as well, Trentino was up 2-0 on Lube. It was over. I think it was 2-3-0s. We were all like, all right, great. Trentino's playing Perugia in the final. Trentino blew it. They collapsed. Lube came all the way back. I'm not going to crown anybody yet. Too much crazy stuff has happened in volleyball this year for us to be giving out any hardware other than Scandicci CEV Cup against a Romanian team. But Piacenza is going to have to change something significantly from the service line. It's got to start there.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm going to push back a little bit on saying that Trentino's not a great passing team, because I think that they're not precise, but they're solid. It's hard to beat them. It's hard to ace them, right? And that's exactly. But even if you look at the passing numbers here, I think in game number 2, like Trentino averaged a 1.9, whereas Piacenza averaged a 1.78, right? So it's kind of in that same area. But when you look at the numbers, like both Lavia's passing over at 2, Micheletto's at a 1.94. So it's a little bit closer. But I think because of their loss to Lube last year, like there's nothing missing for Trentino. And I think another thing to add on to that is that last year Trentino had the added pressure of Champions League, right? True. And they were playing late the season with those other competitions. They don't have that this year, so I'm expecting Trentino to take this 1-3 tomorrow.
Okay, I like that pick. We'll see what happens on next week's show. So we've got both game 3s tomorrow, Wednesday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern on Volleyball World TV. Very possible that Trentino wins the series at that point. Game 4, Milano versus Lube. Let's see when that is. I'm assuming it's either Saturday or Sunday. It is the 22nd. That's Saturday. So a Saturday noon Eastern for Game 4, and that one in Milano. Maybe that series goes 5. Maybe it's over at that point, but we'll certainly catch up on next week's show. So, Everett, before we move on to the Italian Women's League, I would like to give some of my thoughts on a lot of your conversation on last week's show, which, again, you did a fantastic job just going nuts by yourself for an hour talking about a super team assembled like Perugia who collapsed in 2 competitions. And the loss to Zaxa in 4, I mean, they lost the first 2 sets and it was over in Champions League at home. And then they lose to Milano at home to get knocked out of the Scudetto playoffs. I mean, I think you said it really well last week. I think the most obvious thing here is that since that loss to Piacenza in the Coppa Italia semis, Perugia hasn't been a team. They did not use that as the galvanizing event to come together as a team. Instead, they remained fragmented. They were a bunch of very good individual players, but their team dynamic, their team system, and clearly something in their locker room, and including like all the way up through the organization with Anastasi and Circi and everyone involved, that was a broken, fragmented team that was never able to come together. I think you said it very well. Another thing that I like that you said was the block defense, like in a technical perspective, the block defense that Perugia was using badly against both Zaxa and Milano was just not good. Like that should be a good blocking team. Like Flavio, Russo, Soleil, and like Leon, Semeniuk on the left, Gianelli, and whoever on the right. Like that and then Kalachi, I know he's old, but like he's been a world-class libero. Gianelli's a good defender. Position 6 guys should be good defenders. Like that was a bad block defense team, and that's kind of where Perugia would destroy people. Is when they would touch a ball, that's all they would need. They would keep it in play. They would give it to Leon at the top of the antenna, and then he would ruin people's lives in transition. And they just didn't turn any touches into anything. They didn't block any balls. They were leaving seams. They weren't communicating. It was just kind of fragmented. I think it was the same thing. I mean, you already went over all this, but help me out here. Do you agree with some of this stuff?
Oh, 100%, right? Like it's just, you could tell that there was no organization, right?
Yeah.
And especially like playing against Zaxa, and that's their team identity. That's one thing, right? Like Zaxa to me is the most organized team in the world. And I mean, how many different coaches have we seen them do it with now over the past number? This is 3 years, 3 different coaches, and they continue to do it, right? It's their identity as an organization. But for Perugia, there was just clearly no identity other than we have superstars, right? We have some of the biggest names in volleyball, and yeah, it was tough to watch. It was tough to watch them crumble the way they did, and to me, it was very obvious that they had some issues in the room, right? And you alluded to it earlier that this is a team that should have had maybe a closed door meeting, maybe kick out Anastasia out of the room because we know he's not coming back. There's no way he's going to be coaching there next year. And have a talk, but I don't know if there's anyone who's like, I don't know if they have anyone with the leadership capabilities that Gabi has for VakifBank in that room for Perugia.
Man, I just don't know either. And I would expect that both Leone and Gianelli could be those guys. Like Gianelli carried the Italian national team for a full summer last year, played every single game, even when he kind of didn't have to, and was a well-deserved MVP of a world championship. Like that should be the leadership characteristic that Perugia is looking for, but just wasn't there. And another thing that you said last week that I liked is that it was hard to watch Perugia crumble like this. It was difficult to watch, and for some reason I found myself rooting for Perugia a lot of this year. I wanted them to win the Infinity Gauntlet. I wanted them to win all 5 trophies, and I couldn't quite put my finger on why I felt like I wanted that until you said it last week. You said that you enjoyed and you appreciate watching greatness. And I do too. And like some of the first club volleyball I really ever started following was when Wilfredo Leon was in Zenit Kazan. And that was greatness. That it really, really was. Those Champions League series that he won, and like that match against Lube in like 2018 or 19 or whatever that was greatness. And VakifBank last year on the women's side, greatness. It is fun to see greatness in volleyball. In a sport where there's no salary cap and money can buy success to a degree. I was excited about this Perugia team because on paper they were just going to be so dominant, and I kind of wanted to see it. I wanted to see just how good they were going to be. But now I think it reinforces something that I said on the show 2 weeks ago, that the method of building club volleyball teams has now been reinforced once again with the success of Zaxa and the failure of Perugia. Like you said, Zaxa is the most organized, both on the court and top to bottom in the organization. They are the most organized franchise in all of volleyball. They're about to go to a 3rd Champions League final with a 3rd coach. That's completely insane. And they've done that by building teams, not because they can buy all the star power, but because they have done a phenomenal job in building a team that works together, and the culture in that organization fosters that just as well. And that is the way to build a club volleyball team, not the Gino Circi's, Jerry Jones, spend all your money way. Zaxa is the model and Perugia is not. And although I was excited to see Perugia destroy people this year because it would have been fun, I am excited that the Zaxa method of building a club volleyball organization has once again proven to be the correct one. I think that is good for the game, and I'm excited to see how that affects transfer markets for years to come.
I think there's 2 things that come up for me when I hear you speak there. First and foremost, when you look at Gianelli and Italy is clearly, like, when Italy plays together, they're clearly a team with one goal and one purpose, and they're all on the same page, right? Everyone knows their role. Everyone knows what needs to be done. And to me, that comes down to Di Giorgi, right? That comes to Fernando Di Giorgi and how he runs that team and the way that he works with all of them. There was clearly none of that on this Piacenza team, right? And I think that's maybe where you were starting to see that frustration come out from Gianelli, where, like, this is how we should be playing. And I think maybe he took too much of Italy onto Perugia. But I have a hard time putting a lot of blame on Gianelli. I think some of it needs to be, especially with some of his set selections. But this is a guy who was serving tough, who was blocking, who was making digs, who was hustling, when we didn't necessarily see other Perugia players doing that. The second is, I think we're seeing the national team style of volleyball be emulated within club volleyball, right? And Zenit Kazan, those Zenit Kazan teams is a perfect example of once again a team all on the same page with one goal and one style of play. But when you look back, like Leon wasn't the captain of that team. Like Maxim Mikhailov was the captain of that team, and they had other superstars who were bought in, much like Matt Anderson. And then again, we see it with so that's the way Italy played too. And more and more we're starting to see, for so long I had characterized professional volleyball as every year a coach's team is trying to go out and get by the best players. And how many times have we seen year after year just teams with completely different rosters? And over the past 4 or 5 years, we've really started to see teams settle down, start to build them, start to work, like longer term contracts. And I think that's really started to benefit professional volleyball as they're starting to emulate, having a team identity, right? And having a team that you can work with, and you're going out to get kids or new players who fit the identity, rather than just like, we know that these athletes are good, right? And I think a team, like, even though they're in a down year, Lube is one of those teams, right? They've got a mix of young and old, but like Nikolov is clearly like an offensive minded Lube type of player, and that's what they want to go see. Whereas once again, Perugia doesn't have that team identity. They can call themselves the Block Devils all they want, but they aren't a good blocking team, right? So they really, like Xerxes and the rest of that Perugia organization needs to figure out who they are and what they want.
I totally agree. They are at a huge crossroads in their franchise. I have no idea where they go from here. I have no idea what's going on in Gino Ciucci's head right now. Probably a whole lot of this, and just a lot of angry Italian curse words, because they have completely blown it with the best roster maybe ever assembled. And I think we should save this for another show ever, potentially. But another reason why I kind of wanted Perugia to have success this year is because I so firmly believe in Wilfredo Leon. I really, really do believe in him. I believe that he is the best player in the world, and I was excited to see him get back to the top of the game where he belongs. And now I don't think we have a choice but to question his legacy a little bit. It sucks. I don't want to have that conversation because I'm a Leon fan. I believe in him. I love watching him play. I think that he's great for the game, but there's too much. There's too much in these last couple of years that is forcing us to have the discussion of what is going on with Wilfredo Leon. Why has hardware eluded him since he left Zenit Kazan? And I think we could do a whole hour-and-a-half podcast on this and really break it down, and I think that we should. So we don't necessarily have to get into it right now, but it's a conversation that's going to start happening. I don't really want it to happen, but we can't avoid it. We've got to really assess, is the best player of a generation, quote unquote, is that really what he is right now?
Yeah, I don't know. I think we should leave it with this, Rob. Just a little note from the chat here. Rob, remember when you said you'd bet your life that there's no team in the world that could beat Perugia in a 5-match series?
I absolutely remember saying that, and it wasn't a crazy take, because the more, like, the longer a series goes, the better team is going to have more chance of success. And it was more than just the on-court stuff. It was another really good exercise in the effects of pressure on volleyball and on professional sports. I brought up the 2021 Olympics with the United States men a few weeks ago. That was the most crippling pressure that I have ever seen a team succumb to. I think the Polish national team has certainly felt a little bit of that. I think that this Perugia team felt a significant amount of that, probably the most I've ever seen at the club level a team feel and then collapse under massive pressure. Pressure is very real. If anybody ever says that it's not, they are wrong. They are lying to you. And somehow some team mentalities that go way beyond just who's on the court. Some teams, both club and national team, are able to handle that, and some of them aren't. And when somebody figures out exactly the recipe to that, they're going to make a lot of money winning a lot of games for somebody, because it's the last several years, both club and national team, pressure has been a consistent dominating storyline. This is just another data point of pressure beating an incredible team on paper.
Yep, absolutely. It's tough to see. We believed in them, but man, it just makes it even spicier, the fact that they're out and
out of Champions League.
And out of that it's done completely. Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's move on now. Back to the women's game, over to the Lega Volley Femminile first round playoffs. Obviously, as we mentioned, Novara has not started their playoffs. That's going to be happening tomorrow. But Conegliano, they're already on after beating Busto Arsizio 2-0. Kind of a little bit sad. I really like the way that Busto team, they started rough, but they really brought it together later on. But Conegliano will be moving on, looking to defend their titles. Scandicci up 1-0 on Bergamo, and Molonza up 1-0 on Casalmaggiore after a bit of a spicy match that going the distance well.
It was a spicy match. I'm excited to talk about that one. First, we can talk about Conegliano versus Busto. There's not really that much to say here. Game 1 was a 3-dong. It was not even remotely close. And then game 2 was today. Also a 3-0. The third set was close. Federica Squarcini ripped an ace. Kind of a lucky ace off the tape to win in extras in the third set. The two things here for Busto, one was a kind of unlucky but also bad play at the very, very end of the regular season to drop to the 8th seed. That was not good. Because anybody who was going to, we knew, we've been talking about this for weeks. You do not want to be the 8th seed. You do not want to play Conegliano in the first round. And in the last week of the regular season, Busto dropped down to that spot. And here they are against the best team in Italy without a chance. And part of the reason why they didn't have a chance is because they didn't have Rosa Maria. So Rosa Maria didn't play. She suited up at libero for both games, just so that she could be there on the bench. She was never going to see the court. Her health was not good enough, and that was too much for them to overcome. So I think that's kind of all there is to talk about this series. Easy 2-0 for Conegliano.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially now that they're the Champions League, they only have the Lega Volley Femminile playoffs to look forward to. You have to think that Conegliano has just dominated this league all year long. I expect them to be in the Champions League playoffs, but hey, Fenerbahce had different ideas, knocked them out in the quarterfinals. But yeah, absolutely. This is a team that is looking really for to win the Italian league, and it's too bad. As I said, I really liked watching Busto this year. Carly Lloyd, always a big fan of her, an American setter. But you know what? At the end of the day, Conegliano just way too strong.
Way too good. Yeah, no one's going to beat him, especially a team they're starting opposite. So let's move on from that to Scandicci beating Bergamo. This was not as close as I kind of wanted it to be. I have liked Bergamo this year. They've got a couple Americans. I like May. I really like Khalil Lanier, but not good enough. Scandicci looks very, very solid. Great match from Zhu Ting without even starting. She came off the bench, actually. Pretty good match from Camila Mingardi, who hasn't played that much this year. My one question, though, Everett, is what is going on with Elena Pietrini? There's something. I feel like she doesn't get on with the coach. I think there was some sort of argument earlier in the year that we might have talked about, but she has not had a very good year. And still, Scandicci is beating a team like Bergamo 3-0. So it's probably not going to hurt him at this point, but there's something going on there with Pietrini.
Yeah, absolutely. To me, it's all around. Who's the Scandicci coach? Is it Barbolini? Is that
Massimo Barbolini? That's him.
Yeah, Barbolini. And there's been a few different scenarios, and you know what, my girlfriend, she is not a volleyball person at all, but she's always said that she loves watching Pietrini play, and I think it's partly just because of the joy that she plays with, and we really haven't been seeing that all too much this year at all, and I think it's just partly playing for Barbolini, and I think that's a serious question mark when you look at that team and how it's run. Especially when you look at, because where was she last year? Was she with Scandicci last year?
She was with another one of the good teams. I can't remember if it was still Scandicci. I'm pretty sure it was. Yeah, she was one of the only players to stay with Scandicci this offseason because they made so many moves.
Yeah, I think you're right.
They brought in Washington, they brought in Mingardi, they brought in Antropova, they brought in Diao midseason to set, they brought in Zhu Ting, but I think Pietrini was there last year. Anyways, Something's not right there, but it's not going to matter at this point for Scandicci. They're going to get past Bergamo on talent alone. Unfortunately, that just kind of is what it is. I have no idea why Bergamo's starting Emma Kanyin over Mac May. I mean, American bias aside, that outside hitter choice makes absolutely no sense. Julia Gennari is far from my favorite setter in the Italian Women's League. I don't particularly love her game, but again, I think Scandicci is going to win this series just on talent. So we'll see what happens when they get to play whoever the winner of this series is. That I think is going to be much more interesting for Scandicci, but not as easy for Malonza as we may have thought. A close 3-2 over Casalmaggiore in game one.
Yeah, absolutely. It is close. However, once you actually watch this match a little bit and watched how it broke down, it was very interesting. 36 errors for Malonza, as opposed to only 16 for Casalmaggiore. And I mean, hey, like they out attacked them to 74-58. Like in all aspects of the game, Malonza might as well have played this game by themselves, right? and Casalmaggiore still might have won, right? And that to me is just dictates what Malonza is, you know. And once again, like it's just like a weird scenario over there with just so many riches and not much to. It's like they have so many riches but nothing to carry it with.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why they are the title sponsor of the Figure It Out Award of the week. It was interesting to see Dana Retke grab an MVP, only playing like a set and a half. She came off the bench in the fourth, went like 7 for 8, and was a pretty big presence. So that was cool. Another American plug there. But yeah, Malonza's not consistent. They're frustrating to watch. I mean, that number of errors is insane, especially 16 service errors in the women's game is too much. Did you see that play though? That kind of went viral on Instagram of people discussing if it was legal or not.
No way that's legal.
With Alessia Oro kicking that ball outside the antenna. I think that it is. I think that's legal. You know, when you go to pursue a ball like that, the ball has to go outside the antenna. It has to come back outside the antenna. And the player has to go under the net but outside the court. And I think those three things happened. I think the ball went outside the antenna. Oro went under the net, but outside the court. She kicked it back outside the antenna, and then Malonza kept it alive, ended up winning the point. I think that was legal. If you guys don't know what play I'm talking about, go look it up. It's on Instagram. Yeah, Oro like reached under the net to kick a ball that was on the other side, and everybody freaked out, and it was a big discussion if it was legal or not. I think that it is. I actually
because the block doesn't technically count as a touch.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is maybe why it's legal. Right. And that's the only way in my head that it could be legal because the block doesn't count as a touch because they get the block. She comes down immediately, reaches under and kicks it as you said. But yeah, that's the only way I could see it being legal. Where's Two Jacks when you need him?
Where's our resident ref?
Our resident referee, our boy. But yeah, that's the only way I could see that play being legal.
Put it in the comments after the show if you've seen this play, if you know what we're talking about, let us know if you think it's legal or not, and we can discuss it in the Discord as well. Yeah, that was kind of the only interesting thing that I found from this match was that one play because it was so kind of gross and sloppy. We'll see if Casalmaggiore can turn it around or if it's just going to continue to be a one-sided look at the series of does Malonza shoot themselves in the foot and lose a game.
Yeah, I don't have much confidence. Like last year, there was points where I thought Malonza was going to win it all. But I don't have much confidence that they'll do the same this year.
Yeah, I don't either. I like Scandicci over whoever wins this series in the 2 versus 3 sort of round. But we'll see. I mean, I think Scandicci's got a couple cracks. It'll definitely be better than the last series. Let's go back to the bracket. So whoever wins between Novara and Chieri will take on Conegliano. That is now confirmed. That game 1 between Chieri and Novara is tomorrow. Game 2, Malonza Casalmaggiore is also tomorrow. Game 2, Scandicci Bergamo is Thursday. And then game 2, Novara Chieri is Saturday. So it's possible that our semis will be set by next week's show.
Talk about a great time off here for Conegliano. You know, obviously it comes in a terrible situation and you'd never hope for that. But, you know, ultimately, like they get like they're going to get until next week, like another week at least of not having to play matches.
Yeah, they've got their series is over before that 4-5 series has even started. That's going to be a huge advantage. Not that Conegliano needed any help.
No, not at all.
All right, so is that about it for the Lega Volley Femminile, or can we move on to some stuff?
Yeah, I think that's about it. So let's jump from what's next here.
What's next is we got to plug the store. You got a nice shirt on over there, Everett. Tell the people about that volleyball.store.
Oh, it's just where you can grab all of our merch, all of the spicy volleyball merch, all of the 9x9 merch. So make sure you head over to that volleyball.store. Use the code SPICY to get 15% off. And yeah, helps support the show. If you don't want to spend hard-earned dollars, then make sure you give this video a good old like. Come on, guys. We've had like almost 200 people tune into this show and only 11 likes. Like, be better for us.
Yeah,
right?
We can do better than that. We can do better than that.
Be better for us. There we go. We just saw one come in right there.
This is the 81 square meters of the best volleyball coverage on the internet, and I think that 81 is a nice number. 81 likes a week is a good target because we always have at least 1,000 people that listen. I'd say more like 1,500 last week, close to 2,000. If we don't get, if we don't get 81 likes in a week, that's insulting to the 81 square meters of the best volleyball coverage on the internet. So let's make that our goal. 81 thumbs up.
Absolutely. And another thing, go join the Volleyball Source Discord, because that is where it's at. It's essentially the home of Volleyball Source. So make sure you head over to the Discord. There's always stuff going on. Doesn't matter where you're from in the world. You can find someone to talk to in the Discord. So make sure you guys go check us out over there.
Yep, links in the description. Speaking of fun things that have come from the Discord, if you're familiar with the show, if you're familiar with the Discord, you are aware of my undying love for Dragan Stankovic. And we had the debut of a segment 2 weeks ago on this very show, Where's Daddy? So the segment, if you didn't catch the show 2 weeks ago, Where's Daddy? Where's Dragan Stankovic? Because somewhere in one of the graphics during this very episode, Dragan Stankovic is hidden. I'm not going to tell any of you where he is, but the first person to find Daddy Stankovic and post where he is, a timestamp of where you find Daddy Stankovic in the comments after the video, so that means after the live stream is over, the first person to correctly find Daddy Stankovic and put this timestamp of where he is gets a shout out on next week's show. So 2 weeks ago, we debuted this segment. Here is Daddy Stankovic. If you look very closely, my terrible Photoshop skills, I put Daddy's face right over the Perugia Block Devils logo. And the first person to find it, he actually pointed them out immediately in the live chat. We put it in the comments as well. Bassi Lassie, a regular viewer of the show, they found it immediately and put it in the comments after the show right away. So the first viewer, or the first winner of the Where's Daddy segment. So he may have already shown up at some point in this show. He may have yet to show up kind of in the second half of the show. You'll see. So keep an eye out for Daddy Stankovic. And if you see him, make sure you comment the timestamp of where he is after the show is over in like the main YouTube comments.
Absolutely. I think this might be one of the best things that we do.
I think this is the best thing we've ever done.
I find myself, so just for full disclosure, Rob doesn't tell me before the show where Daddy is, right? So I find myself, you guys are going to see me kind of looking at the screen, looking around just to see where it is throughout the show. But yeah, look for it. Where's Daddy? I think we're going to have to switch up the picture sometimes too.
Yeah, I can get a couple different clip arts of Daddy Stankovic. This is my favorite one though. Like, just look at the pose.
Oh man, this is the one. I think I need to find it, but I have a side by side of Daddy Stankovic to John Mayer because, in my opinion, they are identical. They are
remarkably similar. I also got to resurface before Daddy Stankovic deleted his Instagram, which was one of the worst days of my life. Our friend Dan, 51 Dan, messaged him on Instagram saying something like, "Hey Dragan, I'm a big fan of yours. Was wondering if you had any tips on how you keep your hair looking so fresh." And he responded. It was very funny. So I'll post that screenshot in Discord. But yeah, Daddy Stankovic is hidden somewhere in this episode. If you find where he is, comment the timestamp after the show. Just know, I just want everyone to know that when I'm preparing for the show, when I am photoshopping Daddy Stankovic into one of our assets, I am giggling to myself. It is the favorite part of my day. So just wanted everyone to know that.
Yeah. All right, let's move on now from Italy and Daddy to the Plusliga playoffs, where they have been going hot and heavy, and you're going to see 3 of them have already been decided, which is a little bit surprising. Resovia wins their series 3-0. Not really a surprise over Stalnica. JW wins their their series 3-0 over Gdansk, which was maybe a little bit more surprising. I was kind of expecting Gdansk to win one. What a series that I was expecting to go to the limit was Vortava against Zaxa, but Zaxa just in all-time form here. We do see that those first 3 matches did go to limit to 5, so that one was an absolute battle. Honestly, big ups for Warszawa. What a bounce-back season from them. What was it, like a 14-game win streak after just being? Did they even make the playoffs last year? I don't even think so.
They were third 2 years ago. They played Champions League and they missed the playoffs last year. That was brutal, and unfortunately they had the worst draw they could ask for in the 4-5 series. That was an incredible series. Zaxa versus Warszawa. Yeah, like you said, 3 5-setters followed by a 4-set Zaxa win on the road. And I mean, they're playing so much volleyball. I mean, I think I brought it up 2 weeks ago that the series, like the games that are in the same place, because they play kind of like 2-2-1. The first 2 games are back-to-back nights. The second 2 games, back-to-back nights. Like they are just pounding these guys into the ground. I feel bad for Zaxa, like they've had to play with Champions League and everything, but they do survive. So Zaxa versus Resovia is going to be an awesome semifinal series that starts on Saturday. And then the last one, the quarterfinal that isn't yet decided, Olsztyn trying to pull off a reverse sweep. They go down 2-0 in the series. They lose both games on the road at Zawiercie, but they win both games at home against Zawiercie. And if Olsztyn beats Zawiercie without Josh Tuaninga, that will be one of the upsets of the year. It'll be second only to Milano beating Perugia. That would be remarkable.
Yeah, I mean we already know what the biggest upset, like probably of the century already. Let's just call it that. At this point, it might be one of the biggest upsets I've known in volleyball in my entire time in volleyball. But you're right, this one could be a big one. Zawiercie just not hitting well, only 26% efficiency in the last match. I mean, Olsztyn wasn't that much better at 31%, but still better than 26% for Zawiercie. That's just not very good. They're struggling to score points. Only 29 points offensively for Zawiercie in that last match against Olsztyn. Really, they just rely so much on Juros Kavasevic.
Too much for a guy of that play style. And I think I said it when we did the Plusliga preview at the very beginning of the season. We had our friend Adanos on. He picked Zawiercie to win the entire league. And the reason I was skeptical of that is because I have no faith whatsoever in David Konarski at opposite. I have no faith in this guy. He is old. He is washed up. He was never very good to begin with. 6 for 17 with 3 errors in the last game. Just not good enough. And Kovacevic is a guy that is so slippery and weird that if you don't know how to defend against him, you can chuck him a lot of balls and he'll have success just like slithering his way through blocks as he does. But Olsztyn is starting to figure him out. And imagine how good this Olsztyn team could be if Tuaninga was there. I mean, could you imagine? This team's fun anyway. Like Averill, Matej Paremba hasn't even been playing in the middle, but Karol Butrin, Robert Andringa at the left side, which is interesting. Karlicek, and whoever their backup setter is, like with Tuaninga on that team, I would love to see them go to the semis and maybe even play Champions League next year if they can kind of keep that crew together.
To me, one of the big question marks for this one is on Zawiercie, and where's Bartosz Kwolek? Is he injured? Because they have Walensky starting on the left side opposite to Kovacevic. But to me, like, I love watching Kwolek. We got to watch him last year in Ottawa at Nations League when he played for Poland.
Yeah, Kwolek's great.
And you know what? He just adds another dimension. And I mean, Walensky has just been struggling a little bit, only 4 for 11 attacking. He did get 2 blocks and an ace in this one, but still overall a -1 there for Zawiercie. And I think that's really, really been one of the reasons why they've been struggling so much, because they just don't have as many of the weapons as they did at the beginning of the season.
Right. That's very well said. So game 5 in that series is tomorrow. Tomorrow is a ridiculous day of volleyball. We've got playoffs, and we've got so many games tomorrow. So Discord will be popping off, I'm sure. But yeah, 11:30 a.m. Eastern at Zawiercie, game 5 in that series. Winner of that plays Jastrzębski in the semis.
Maybe actually Kolek did play in game number 3. He was 7 for 21 with a 5% efficiency, and got benched after the third set. So maybe that's why we're not seeing Bartosz Kolek at the moment. He has an infection.
Yeah, one of our Polish fans in the chat said he was sick, so maybe he'll be ready to go by tomorrow. Maybe not, because that game 4 was only 2 days ago. That was on Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, game 5 goes down tomorrow. As Rob said, massive day of volleyball tomorrow, because as we jump into, do we want to go to where do we want to go next?
Let's stay in Poland. Let's stay in Poland really quickly, just to talk about the Tauron Liga, because we haven't covered the Tauron Liga that much this year. It's usually pretty lopsided. Like, there are a couple good teams. Chemik Police wins it every single year. They've won 8 of the last 9, but not this year. They are out in the quarterfinals, losing 2-1, and both losses at home. So Police will not play Champions League next year. That is very surprising. Now, that to me means it's either Łódź or Rzeszow's league to win.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think with Rzeszów, they've just been knocking on the door. Like, how many years has this Rzeszów team just looked good, especially early on, and then haven't been able to get it together? So I love Stefan Antiga. He did some great things for my Maple Volleys, and I'm really pulling for the Rzeszów and that developers team to take it home this year.
And very possible they could. One of their main challengers is out, so Police is done. We will not have a repeat. I wonder how many they've won in a row. I know they've won 8 of the last 9 years in the Polish Women's League, which is crazy. But so there will be a new champion there this year. Speaking of champions, let's go to Turkey, a match that I had no idea was happening today until I checked out the Discord. The Turkish Cup Final on the men's side. Halkbank completely destroying Fenerbahce's men's team. 3-0, absolutely not even close. So a little hardware there for Halkbank Ankara, good for Namir, good for Mike Amato, good for Thomas Jeschke. Understandably, kind of the Turkish calendars moved back about a month from where most of the leagues are because of the earthquake. But yeah, I didn't know this match was happening. I did catch most of the third set, and it was a beatdown. This was not even close.
Yeah, Halkbank, I mean, just has been going, to me, they have to be one of the favorites in the Turkish league. I was a little surprised they were able to play all those players. Like, I guess Bruno wasn't playing, and they had Yiğit.
Yeah, so they had Yiğit on the left side. So yeah, their 3 foreigners are Jeschke, Namir, and Maa. So that's fair game.
Yeah, and I mean the fact that you have Bruno to go to on the bench there, especially in the Efteler Ligi, or is that
the Efteler Ligi.
Yeah, just that's what it is. Obviously, that's not what this event is. I think is really, really good for Halkbank, and it's gonna be interesting. Just pulling up the playoffs for them. Oh, they haven't started the playoffs. They are still. Oh, that makes sense. They are still in the regular season.
So speaking of the Turkish league being behind, on the women's side, there was a good match today. THY Istanbul beating Galatasaray in 4. That was, I think, THY's second to last match of the year. And in winning this game and in getting 3 points, the top 4 in the Turkish women's league, the Sultanlar Ligi, is set. So Eczacıbaşı's got a game in hand. They're going to get the 1 seed regardless, but we know the semis. It'll be Eczacıbaşı versus THY, and it'll be VakifBank versus Fenerbahce. And only the top 4 make the playoffs in the Turkish Women's League, which is kind of crazy. So now with 1 and change regular season games to play in the Turkish Women's League, we know the semifinal matchups already.
Yeah, big game there by Maddie Kingdon. 18 points there for THY, and of course Kira Van Ryk still back home in Canada, where her mom is in the hospital. We send our prayers out to Kira and her family.
Yep. So there are a couple makeup games tomorrow in the Sultanlar Ligi, but then this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, the Sultanlar Ligi wraps up regular season play. So that bracket, I mean, we already know what it is, but it'll be official by this time next week. We do have Fenerbahce versus THY on Sunday, but very likely that both those teams play the bench in that one because it won't affect anything in the regular season.
Yeah, we are done the regular season for the Efteler Ligi.
Okay.
Halkbank finished at number 1, Ziraat Benghazi at number 2, Fenerbahce at 3, Arcus at number 4, and then kind of doesn't matter after that. Bursa at 5, Galatasaray at 6, Tersad at 7, Sirze at 8, and Sport Toto. Or wait, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah,
5,
ninth.
6,
Ouch.
at 9, and that was a team, man. That Sport Toto is might have some of the best jerseys, though. I do really like their jerseys, but I mean, they had Wallace a few years ago.
I think it was last year. I think it was just last year they won the Turkish Cup with Wallace, like kind of out of nowhere. So yeah, those semifinals are set. Halkbank versus Arcus Izmir. Let's go back to the men's side. Yeah, Ziraat versus Fenerbahce. Those are Sunday. Game 1 of those semifinals are on Sunday. It is crazy to me that only the top 4 teams in Turkey make the playoffs.
Yeah, that is nuts.
So is what it is. At least the match today, like the Turkish Cup final, was free on YouTube today, which was cool, not geo-blocked. Oh. So that's a perk for people trying to watch Turkish volleyball. Sometimes.
I mean, some of their games are. It's really hard to follow the Turkish league because they're all over the place.
Yeah, since it's not in one spot, it's a little trickier. But the Discord will help with that. If you want to watch any Turkish volleyball, there's the Turkey channel in the Discord. Pop it in there. We can help you out. Moving on elsewhere around Europe, let's talk about the Bundesliga. Lot going on here. So the last time I was here 2 weeks ago, we talked about Friedrichshafen about to go to game 3 against Gießen, and was going to do it without Dejan Vincic. So they got past that, no problem. And now they're up 2-0 on Lundberg, kind of out of nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, a couple weeks ago, it was looking like, well, maybe we're going to have some upsets. Maybe things are going to be interesting. Even in the regular season, we've seen in that weird kind of 1 through 4 playoffs where they all kind of beat each other. But Berlin has just been pumping during in their series. And game 1 between Friedrichshafen versus Lundberg was pretty good. I mean, it went the distance, 5 sets. Friedrichshafen was the champions at the end of the day, but it was exciting. Xander Ketchinski dropped 25 on the right side for Lundberg in that one. But man, did Lundberg ever look discombobulated? They didn't look like one of the hallmarks I've noticed from the Burger Boys this year, aka the Americans and Canadians in Lundberg, was they just loved playing the game. They were always having so much fun, and you could tell that it was off. Jordan Ewart had a bad day on Sunday, and it was
6 for 16, blocked 4 times. That's pretty bad.
Yeah, it was bad. Xander wasn't fantastic at all either, and as once again he had dropped 25 points on the right side. Again in the match before. So yeah, it was a tough watch, but I'm interested to see. I think actually game 3 tomorrow? I do believe game 3 is tomorrow. So once again, make sure to go check that out on Spontent. The hands down the best broadcast in volleyball. No doubt about it. You don't get any of this 720p bull crap that you get with Volleyball TV and Euro Volley TV. You get it in full 1080. It's beautiful. And I can't understand what they're saying, but at least you can tell they've got knowledgeable commentators.
Right. And they're so both game 3s are tomorrow. Berlin and Friedrichshafen both with chances to go to the final again. I think Friedrichshafen Lundberg is 1 p.m. Eastern. Berlin versus Düren is 1:45 Eastern. So those will overlap by a little bit, and the Twitch stream will cover both games. So it's a good way to, even if games are overlapping and when they're being played, you will get to watch both of them, which is cool.
Tomorrow is just a volleyball day, ladies and
tomorrow's
gentlemen.
a volleyball day.
Make sure to check
tomorrow
it
is a
out.
volleyball day.
It is going to be a good one.
I think there might be even more volleyball going on tomorrow in the form of the French League. Let's check this out.
Let's
go. So the quarterfinals. This bracket isn't up to date, but here's what we got going on right now. So Tours beat Montpellier, no problem, 3-0. Tours is in the semifinals. Nantes beat Set, no problem, 3-0. Nantes is in the semifinals, but the other 2 series, Chaumont versus Saint-Nazaire and Narbonne versus Tourcoing, both of those are 2-2. Both of those are going to match 5. Both of those are tomorrow as well. So everyone's going to need like 16 screens to watch all the volleyball that there is tomorrow. This is going to be nuts.
Yeah, just so much, and a lot of North American content on all of these teams playing right now. Of course, Saint Nazaire, you've got Quinn Isaacson, Kyle Ensing, Tourcoing, and Chaumont. You also have Pat Gassman as well, who's playing over
And
at Chaumont.
Mike Marshman, VLA guy on that team as well.
Mike Martian. Who is it? Is it Kyle Russell who's playing for Narbonne?
No, Russell was on set with Derek
No,
Epp, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, no, but I thought there was an American guy. I don't know. But Tourcoing is where you got the trio of Canadians, Riley Barnes, Lucas Van Berkel, and Jay Blankenau. So the Canadian boys, the Maple boys, are over there getting it done. But yeah, that one is going to be going into game 5. I mean, Riley Barnes was fantastic in the last one. Let's see. Who is it I thought?
Yeah, look it up on
No, they don't have
really quick.
no. There's no Americans. Sorry, I apologize. I thought there definitely was, but no Americans on Narbonne.
Volleyballsource.ca for all the stream links to LNV games. That's a free website where you can watch them. You just got to sign up with an email, but you don't have to put in a credit card or anything. So you can watch those 2 game 5s tomorrow. That's going to be spicy. So let's see. We got that. We got Bundesliga. We got Plusliga game 5, Xavier Olsztyn. We got a couple Lega Volley Femminile playoff games. We got the 2 Scudetto playoff games on the men's side tomorrow. Like, tomorrow's nuts, man.
Yeah, so much volleyball tomorrow. I'm just gonna go sit on the couch and watch volleyball, or maybe I'll sit on the chair. Who knows what we're gonna do.
A little bit of both. So I think last but not least, before we wrap up the show, it is that time of year, Everett, to start turning our attention back toward the NCAA. So by this time next week, we will have the bracket for the NCAA championship. So that stupid, terrible 7-team bracket format that they have. Selection Sunday is this weekend, and that's because all the conference tournaments are going down this week. A couple have already started, but basically all the NCAA conference tournaments are doing their championship games on Saturday. So Saturday night's going to be a big day for NCAA ball. Before we get into this, we are remind you all, if there's one place you need to go for NCAA men's news, offtheblockblog.com. Vinny Lopes,
let's go.
He posts every day the games that are happening and links to watch them. So that is the number one place that you should go. So a couple conferences, we can sort of whet people's appetites for the NCAA as we start to cover it a little more leading up to the tournament in a couple weeks. The Final Four is set here. We had a huge upset in the MIVA. Number 7, McKendree, beating number 2, Loyola Chicago in 5. So that was big.
Wow.
Big time.
Okay. That is big.
So that's first time a 7 seed has ever won in the MIVA tournament is what I was looking at. So McKendree takes on Ohio State in Columbus tomorrow night. Lewis advanced over Purdue Fort Wayne. I think that they had a set 4. There was something like 38-36 in that game, which is insane. So Lewis will take on the number 1 seed Ball State in the semifinals there. Finals of the MIVA are on Saturday. That's kind of like my home conference. So I definitely know a decent amount of the guys and coaches in the MIVA for sure. As far as the EIVA goes, this is Penn State's conference to lose. Everybody knows it. George Mason plays Harvard. Winner plays Penn State. Charleston plays NJIT. Winner plays Princeton. This is all at Penn State. Penn State's going to win this no problem. If you remember last year, they got upset by Princeton and did not go to the NCAA championships. That's not going to happen this year. Pavlik's team is extremely, extremely good. They're actually, I think it's fair to call them national championship contenders. I mean, you and I saw
absolutely think so. 100%.
Yeah, we saw them in Austin, Everett, and we were very impressed by Penn State.
Very, very, very impressed by Penn State. And I mean, they've beaten some big teams this year too. They've beaten Hawaii. So this is a team that could compete. George Mason, are hosting?
George Mason is hosting. They do not get an auto bid. So if the only way George Mason's going to going to get to play the national championship tournament at home is if they win 3 games. They're going to have to beat Harvard, beat Penn State, and beat someone else on the other side of the bracket, and I don't see it.
All right. Charleston, Luke Reynolds has been doing a fantastic job with that program. They're going to be hosting the Norseca Championships later this year. Also, big shout out to Princeton with their Canadian captain, Alec Mackay. So,
hey.
I got to get that in there a little bit. But you're right. This is Penn State's conference to lose for sure.
For sure. The Big West, I think, is what we have up next here. Yeah. So the Big West, a couple years ago, the Big West and the MPSF split. So that West Coast is now represented by 2 conferences. This is Hawaii and Long Beach's conference, and they're probably going to play in the final like we all expect. This is in Hawaii. UC Santa Barbara takes on UC San Diego. Winner plays Hawaii. UC Irvine takes on Cal State Northridge. Winner that plays Long Beach State. I expect it to be a Long Beach State Hawaii final, and that's going to be a barn burner because that has been the national championship game the last couple years, and that is always a fun matchup. So in Hawaii, I like Hawaii, but they're not nearly the juggernaut that they were the last 2 years when they won natties like effortlessly.
Yeah, I mean, they were one of the number 1 ranked team throughout a lot of this season, and I'm not
they
sure.
Still are. They still are.
They still are? Okay.
Still the number 1 team in the country, but they're not nearly as like untouchable as they were, especially last year. They were so much better than everyone else last year.
Yeah.
It's much more competitive this time around, and whoever Hawaii probably plays in the final on Saturday for the conference is going to be good.
Yeah, 100%. But I mean, I would love to see Hawaii versus Long Beach final, just because these are 2 of the premier programs in North America, but also just 2 teams that do not like each other very much.
That's right.
2 coaches who do not like each other very much as well.
That is always fireworks when they play. Next up is the MPSF. This is UCLA's conference that they have dominated all year. So they're the 1 seed. They get a bye. Everything else, BYU plays Concordia, Stanford plays USC, Grand Canyon plays Pepperdine. I do like that 4-5 game, Grand Canyon versus Pepperdine. Both those teams are pretty good. We saw Pepperdine back in Texas earlier in the year. And then this is a bracket that they reseed, so it's not like preset matchups. UCLA will play the lowest remaining seed after the first round. So I think this is all happening at Stanford. So a little home court advantage for Stanford to remember last year, they beat, I think it was UCLA before losing to Pep in the final of the MPSF tournament. Like Stanford almost got a bid to nationals last year, and now doing it at home, they're probably going to need to do that to go to nationals this year for Costi's team. And at home, anything's possible. I mean, UCLA is number 2 in the country. They're going to get an auto bid regardless. So maybe Stanford pulls an upset.
I'm a little disappointed when we saw Stanford at the beginning of the year at Austin. I thought that was a team that was looking pretty good, especially with Theos Nui, that the freshman on the right side. But they just really haven't been able to get it together throughout the year. But I think it's kind of anyone's game between BYU, Stanford, and GCU, to be honest.
Yeah, any of those games are going to be good. I think GCU and Pep will be good. Pep hasn't had that good of a conference season, but they showed flashes of really good volleyball sometimes when we saw them in Texas earlier in the year. So the MPSF is stacked. It kind of always has been. But again, even if UCLA doesn't win this tournament, they will go to nationals. They've been that good this year.
All right, fair enough. And are we talking about Conference Carolinas?
Sure. There's a couple others. The NEC is a brand new conference this year, the Northeast Conference. So they do not get an auto bid to nationals this year, but hopefully next year they will. So Sacred Heart and St. Francis, Pennsylvania were in the EIVA. They split off to play in the NEC because the NEC actually sponsors every sport, and all of these programs that are playing NEC volleyball play NEC and everything else, which is great. It's like the only conference that's doing it correctly. The unfortunate news of the NEC, though, is that we're losing a team. St. Francis Brooklyn is a program in New York City that isn't just cutting their men's volleyball team; they're cutting the entire athletic department at the end of this academic year. So that is a really tough break for their school, but also for the men's volleyball community to lose a team.
Yeah, I mean, it affects men's volleyball way more than anyone else. Like,
for
when
sure.
you lose one team, it's such a big blow.
Yeah, it's huge. It sucks. So also the Conference Carolinas does get an auto bid to nationals. And if you remember last year, North Greenville, who's the 1 seed in the CC this year, they actually won a game. They beat Princeton in the first round. It was the first Conference Carolinas win ever at the NCAA championships. So whoever wins the Conference Carolinas will get to go play in Virginia for a title. If they win a game, they'll be thrilled with that. Probably going to be North Greenville again. Other than that, I don't know that much about the Conference Carolinas.
Yeah, I don't know anything about them either. So have a cookie. Thanks for participating.
Thanks for participating. Then last thing on NCAA, there's like the one other like semi-conference is for independent teams. It's like the Independent Volleyball Association, which is like a conference, but it's not a conference. I've always been confused by that. So they had a conference quote unquote tournament last weekend. Lincoln Memorial won it. Lincoln Memorial is pretty good. But another tough break, there's a team in the IVA called Limestone that they just found out just after the tournament out of nowhere that their men's volleyball program is being cut as well. So 2 men's volleyball programs in Division 1/2 that will not be any longer after this season. That really hurts.
Yeah, that's tough. It's always tough when you lose volleyball. It's tough to lose athletic programs, period, but losing volleyball programs, that's really where it hurts. It's losing men's volleyball programs. I mean, no one's gonna be cutting women's volleyball programs anytime soon, unless you're cutting all of your programs, all of your athletics. But yeah, losing men's volleyball specifically, that hurts.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it with Stanford a couple years ago, and if Stanford can threaten to shut down men's volleyball, nobody is safe. So men's NCAA volleyball does really need your viewership the next couple weeks. So hit up offtheblockblog.com, watch some conference tournaments this week. And when it comes to the NCAA championships in 3 weeks, maybe 2 weeks, it's like May 6th weekend. So like 2.5 weeks from now, we really need your viewership on that one too. And we'll preview that when that comes closer.
Yep. All righty, Rob. That it for today. That was another long show.
So
much going on. So much going on with the playoff stuff. And you know what? We're not going to talk about it yet, but some countries are starting to let their long list out, or put out their long list for VNL. So we are on the doorstep of national team season. And real quick, I do want to thank you all, our viewers and our listeners. This time last year, we're averaging around 250 viewers per episode. And now, last week's episode was well over. I think we're at 2,100 right now, plus another 100 just on audio alone. So really appreciate everyone who's been coming out and supporting the show and listening and watching. It's been awesome.
Yeah, we've got a great community. We love the community. It's like really we started this show for the Volleyball Source Discord and the community that we've got going on in there. Since then, both of them have exploded. And sometimes we get discouraged about the volleyball world, like with the Volleyball Source Instagram getting taken down and all the crap that we have to deal with fighting against the FIVB and all this stupid stuff. But doing this show and having you guys that love the show and watch it every week really makes it worth it for us. So thank you for that. Friendly reminder, Daddy Stankovic has appeared. He has shown up.
I did see him. I did see him this week.
I think I saw you make a face when he showed up. So
nice little smile.
Yeah. If you know where Daddy Stankovic is, put it in the timestamp right after the show is over. And also check out that volleyball.store for some cool gear. All that plus check out the Discord and watch along with us as we watch like 50 different playoff games tomorrow. It's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, going to be a big day. All right, guys, thank you very much. Have a great night. Check out the Discord for tomorrow, and we will see you next week, same time, same place. Peace.